There are many things which are close by. We just need to look at within the industry and maybe other geographical locations in the world what's going around, and we could find things that we need to do which could possibly change the game for us. I mean, consolidation hubs, consolidation tools, just to name a few things that he spoke about. Standardizing certain products. So product offerings that could be standardized in terms of right from the service provider, from the asset side, so from the carriers to the freight forwarders, and then ultimately the customer should need to also be able to adapt and adopt the product standardization, which is going to ultimately benefit them. So ladies and gentlemen, before I close the session, I would want, sorry Varsha, hold on, I will not let you come here. I would want this session to have a few question and answers. You all have come here. All this morning you managed to sit and listen to a lot of people. We have 3 wonderful panelists here. I would like you to ask a quick round of, we have maybe time for about 4 questions, maximum 5. Please, would request you to keep them very brief and to the point. Can we have assistance on the mics? Anybody? Cyrus?
We need a takeaway from this forum. We don't have the takeaway. Can you give us one advice, one takeaway, what we can do for our business, logistics? When we cover the angle on everything, but what's the takeaway for us?
I think the biggest takeaway,
it has to be a seamless experience for the end customer, because until we become competitive that way, customer is not going to value our offerings. I think that is the biggest takeaway according to me for ACFI.
That's good. Can I just elaborate a little bit? I mean, something that possibly Unicommerce does, so there's various, so they created a platform where all these customers could upload their inventories, and ultimately those customers or those marketplaces could have visibility of the entire inventory in the real-time live situation. So which is what he mentions is that the air cargo fraternity possibly needs to embrace is create a common platform whereby the entire service offerings from either a carrier or a service provider could be there, right? Somebody? Vikram?
Okay. Now they can be actually major disruptors for companies like us if they are looking at a model which is not their primary business, which is being subsidized by another business and is taking up space that we would normally use for commercial cars. So it's not necessary that they will be innovators or service providers or beneficial to the industry as such. They might be big disruptors which will get rid of a lot of forwarders because of certain subsidizations and cross-financing deals which might happen. So how do you view that for the commercial part of the industry rather than the e-commerce part of the industry?
What you mean possibly is that you're able to adopt and continue to run businesses.
From our perspective, I don't think we need to, yes, we have to be worried. But I like to think of it as an embracement of what's coming at us. I like to embrace the future. We have a very good example, like I said, this about China for 9 years. We set up a corporations with Alibaba, where they go online on a portal being created with them, and they book directly on the online portal. We don't touch the cargo until the cargo is out of Shanghai airport. So if we can optimize and learn from these forwarders the way to generate profit, there is profit to be made. It may not be in a simple freight from airport to airport, and that's what we got to get away from. We are not any more freight forwarders of the past. Now, our industry, our freight forwarding as a whole has changed a lot, and it will continue to change. And if we can adapt, then we will die. So we need to adapt to their way of thinking, their way of doing business, and through that, we can offer different services that we can generate profit as well. Because there is still profit to be made out there.
Last question.
For organizing such a nice conclave and summit. Since morning I have been listening and following everything, like Mr. Sinha said in the morning, where is the money? I mean, we want to see the money. And Mrs. Agarwal also said, M is silent, so I assume it's money. We have been talking everything, but What about the money of freight forwarder? Like all of us, we have a civil rating, you know. Likewise, I think the exporters, they should also have some kind of rating. So in case if they are not making the payment in time, so all of us as a community, we should know that these are the exporters, those who are red, blue, green, whatever the color may be. So are we thinking about such innovation in our industry?
Yeah. So what I would say is that the right that they use, but it's also the driver which rates the customer back, right? So I'm sure that, you know, as the innovation is happening and in the industry, there would be rating backwards as well, and which will of course assist companies, you know, or will highlight the customers which are not in sync with what the requirements of the business are. Gentlemen, I would, ladies and gentlemen,
yes.
I would.
One question. I'm sorry, I got hold of a mic. You know, you mentioned a lot about the commercial sort of disruption that might, as yet, has not been seen in India between the airlines and the forwarders, and I won't go into that. But what's the one takeaway that you would, you know, give to the airlines on the systems and the integration and the sort of the customer interaction side that, you know, would take us forward into the next generation?
Thanks. Before we make some more people a little bit discontent here, but I'll try and respond to this. So I think the first part I would say is that you know, product differentiation as it sits in an airline today needs to be consistently applied to the business and should not depend on demand supply at any point of time in a particular market. So if you look at 2017, the second half of the year, most of the product differentiation that was created over a long period of time on the airline side that was used by us in a way of servicing the business disappeared. And I think that's a very short-term action for something that needs to be sustained and developed for a long period of time. The other thing I think is that, you know, we're challenged with visibility. Some people talked about, you know, technology that's coming in today where the cargo tells you exactly how it's being handled. And I think again there, given the kind of speed and the change that the industry is seeing, I think the visibility in the way of uplifted as booked, delivered as committed, and so on and so forth, needs to start getting much more robust, much more strong in terms of updations and things of that kind, and again has to be consistently applied. In the same way as we have our own internal track and trace, where honestly in India today, our biggest challenge that we are addressing in the business is as you upsell into the business, how do you deal with, if you don't have a very high score, how do you deal with a client that is using that platform that finds that the first 5 shipments are not even entered into the system, or all of the milestones that were committed in a very fancy presentation are actually not available on the system. So I think in these two areas specifically, you know, given the size of the market and the maturity learning curve that we have to go through, I think these are two of the first things that come to mind.
Each and every panelist since morning today, including the government, was the customer. So customer needs to define what they need, and we need to work backwards. That's an absolute key. The second key word that we've been hearing is visibility. So visibility upstream or downstream in the entire supply chain needs to be absolutely there. All the touch points need to be visible. Data is another word that we heard. So predictive analytics is going to play a very sizable role in things. Businesses need to be there. They need to embrace. They need to adopt. They need to accept this change. And the key word is constantly. The technology of today will not be the technology of tomorrow. Before tomorrow comes, the technology would change again. So constantly, you need to make all the necessary changes. Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Vikram. That's my.
I request Mr. Venkat Reddy, Chairman, ACFI Bangalore Chapter, to please come up on the stage and present the mementos to our speakers and the moderator. Mr. Kapil Makhija, Mr. P. Rasmussen, Mr. Vikram Paul,
she's not here, I think. She spoke about the customer being silent. I'm sure, the forwarding community absolutely understands in full force what the customer silence is all about. Thank God that they are silent so far. If they had a voice, we were in trouble. So ladies and gentlemen, we have this afternoon session, not spending too much of time. We've already dwelled upon the importance of technology in the business today. Be it be on the forwarding side, be it be on the terminal side, be it be e-commerce. We've spoken a lot about the movement of goods from the supplier to the buyer. What we are seeing today is a huge change in which business is getting transacted all over the world. When the topic was put up as, between an e-commerce logistics player and a traditional freight forwarder player, who's winning the race? So, I think e-commerce logistics is an evolution of traditional freight forwarding. A lot of the traditional freight forwarding companies are also evolving themselves to fit into the e-commerce logistics demand, which is more so on a very piece basis. In the traditional freight forwarding model was built around moving largest consignment, so moving 100 packages, 500 packages, 10,000 packages, moving one container or a consignment of hundreds of containers. This is what all our models were built around. But what we are seeing now is the new e-commerce logistics companies are completely changing this business scenario where they are trying to move that small little piece from the buyer to the supplier, or from the supplier to the buyer, and also making sure that there is complete visibility in the entire chain. And this is what is going to be the key going forward, that how are we able to create visibility of our business, of the business which is available. 3D printing and other innovations on the production side are absolutely going to completely transform the business, and how the logistics companies will reinvent themselves to meet these demands is what we need to see. So I will let the panel do most of the talking and not me. I will request our first panelist to come over. Just to give a brief introduction, we have Mr. Kapil Makhija here. He's the CEO Unicommerce E-Solutions Private Limited. First of all, can you give him a round of applause because he was busy having tea. Thank you, Kapil, for making it here. Kapil has got 11 years of experience across technology, e-commerce and supply chain. He's been instrumental in making Unicommerce to a customer base of over 10,000 customers across 220 cities of India. He holds a degree of Bachelor of Technology and Master of Technology from IIT Delhi, and also a management degree from IIM Bangalore. It's an absolute pleasure to have him here. Since he's from the e-commerce side, he's not an e-commerce logistics service provider, but maybe he will be able to tell us what is happening in the business today and what the expectations could be as in tomorrow. Kapil, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Yash. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Hope all of you are refreshed after the tea break. I'll have the liberty of another 10-15 minutes talking about 5 years. And in this short time, we've been able to grow to have a customer base of more than 10,000 vendors. And the platform is currently used to manage roughly 20% of overall India's e-commerce transactions, which is approximately $1.5 billion of GMV. Just briefly, what we provide is a platform to connect the e-commerce marketplaces like Flipkart, Amazon and Snapdeal to the vendors who are selling on these platforms. We provide an aggregator layer so that they can manage their orders and inventory centrally at one place. So through this journey, we have been able to amass some learnings about how e-commerce has evolved, and I am here to share those learnings with all of you today. Online shoppers have increased, and we hear about it in the media almost every day now. While this created a lot of opportunities, what it also led to leading a lot of challenges for the brands selling on e-commerce. This meant that they had to manage many more channels now. They had to manage their ratings. Their team had to evolve very fast to new processes and systems. Thankfully, with technology, a lot of these processes have been, we've been able to streamline them, and they have been able to reap the benefits of the e-commerce growth. So I'm going to cover about what are some of the technology-led innovations that have happened in the e-commerce ecosystem. They broadly happened both on the front end, which is the websites that you and I see on a daily basis, as well as on the back end. On the front end, some of the innovations that have happened is rise of mobile app, brands going omni-channel. There is innovations in the marketing campaigns that the brands are reaching out to customers with, as well as on the informal selling channels coming up, which are technology based. Is the text clear to you, or is it very hazy right now? Okay. Yeah. I've got images in the subsequent slides, so hopefully that should be better. Similarly, there have been innovations on the backend, and I'm going to cover those in detail in the subsequent slides. So first on the front-end innovation, we all know mobile has just taken the entire industry by storm thanks to people like Jio and other telecom providers. Now everyone is using a smartphone. We are adding 50 million subscribers almost every year. And in fact, online shopping in many geographies right now is happening mostly through mobile, including countries like US, UK, Germany, as well as India. More than 50% transactions currently are happening on mobile. And that's happening because the customer needs are evolving. Customer wants to consume more information, shop on the go, because he values convenience and as well as more information along with the prices. Similarly, evolution of payment mechanisms around mobile. The payments have become much more secure thanks to UPI, Paytm, MobiKwik, etc. As well as brands are pushing for it because it gives them a sticky marketing mechanism for them, because with the constant presence on the mobile phone of the customer, they are able to reinforce those messages. Because of which we have seen a lot of rise of mobile-driven innovations. Besides mobile, the brands have now also started to go omni-channel, because the customer is now experiencing the brand at multiple touch points. Whether it's his app, whether it's the presence on the e-commerce marketplaces like Flipkart, Amazon, or whether it's their own website or offline store or social media. The brand has to be consistent on all these platforms because the customer is interacting for different reasons. There are people who research online and shop offline, people who try products offline and then buy online. And there is an amalgamation of online and offline that's happening, and the boundaries are now blurring. And that's important because it solves both the customer need as well as the brand need. The customer needs convenience, shorter time deliveries, better prices, as well as better connect with the brand. And similarly, the brand needs to offer these convenient mechanisms to the customer and ensure that the engagement is much more deeper, so that there is greater loyalty. Some of the innovations on the omni-channel side that we have seen, many brands are now offering the concept of click and collect. Especially Tata Click has launched a new platform through Chroma stores. You can order online and collect it from a Chroma store. This gives the customer convenience of trying out the product there and then and making up their mind, rather than ordering like 3 pairs of shoes and then deciding which one fits you, then again ordering another bunch. It leads to a lot of inconvenience. Similarly, Myntra, Lenskart are offering features like try and buy, so that you can order different lenses and then try them at home. In fact, Lenskart is now offering you a 360-degree view of your face, so that you can view the lenses properly. And I'm taking these examples because all of these are our customers and we have implemented these technologies for them. Similarly, there's a concept called endless aisle that's coming up. You walk into a store, you like a shoe, but it's not in your size. Earlier, the customer used to walk away and go to a different store, but now, thanks to technology, that store owner can tell him that I can get that shoe of your size delivered to your house in the next 24 hours, which just enhances the customer experience. And there are innovations like these which are happening and helping evolve the entire e-commerce ecosystem. Similarly, we have seen innovations happening on the advertising. We have seen people being very innovative in the way they reach out to the consumers, because now there's a lot of information available for the consumer. So you have to be very innovative when you have to capture the top of mind recall for those customers. We have seen Flipkart using children to advertise for their services. We have seen Zomato using hoardings in a very interesting way and catching everyone's attention. And there are others like a Vodafone Suzuki campaign we all know has been so popular. And digital marketing has also been on the rise because they are able to establish a high return on investment on these. For example, people are able to connect well to a Google or Facebook page and reach out to the relevant customers. Similarly, email marketing has become very popular, and I'm sure you are getting out thousands of emails every day from different providers. But the idea is that now they're able to collect data from those customers and provide pointed offerings, because that is what will click with the customer. You cannot send a generic email anymore. And similarly, there are other initiatives like those that are happening. And finally, informal sales channels have come up. Facebook, WhatsApp have evolved from not just being a social media information consumption engines to being a business engines also. WhatsApp has just recently launched WhatsApp Business, through which you can interact. In fact, it was happening a lot informally. Your local kirana store or your local chemist shop is already taking your orders on WhatsApp and delivering the goods to you. Similarly, Facebook has now launched a store for a group. If you have a group with a group of friends, you can also have an option to sell it to that group as well. Facebook stores have come up, and this has now become a $10 billion economy in India itself. So that's the extent to which technology has impacted front end. This was all about the front end. In case there are any questions, I can take them now, else I can move to the back end part and the innovations that have happened there. Okay, sure. Because of e-commerce is evolution of the warehouse management practices. The traditional supply chain was more about having cost-focused decisions, making sure that shipments were happening in bulk. But thanks to e-commerce, this supply chain evolved to being a responsive supply chain. There had to be an item level tracking because that visibility had to be given to a customer. The warehouses needed to have a large pre-processing area because the shipments had to be segregated to different customers. A Snapdeal warehouse currently at its peak used to do about 1.5 million shipments a day, and they had to be segregated for different customers all across India. So obviously a 30% area had to be dedicated to pre-processing, as opposed to a less than 5% area which was dedicated in a traditional supply chain model. Similarly, returns is something that got introduced by e-commerce because they had to establish comfort and trust of the customers, because of which complexities on the supply chain increased manifold. They had to make sure that stringent quality checks had to be put in place so that the right product got dispatched to the customer. They had to make sure that complete visibility on the product, whether it's packed, whether it's on its way, is sent to the customer so that there are limited cases of no-show. And I'm sure you must be getting messages from Amazon, Flipkart almost every day saying that your packet is at this stage, and all this has been powered by technology. Without this, the returns earlier used to be around, I think, 35 to 40% when e-commerce started in 2012-13. Now it has come down to less than 20%, even in complex categories like apparels. And that has been possible because of technology. Finally, reconciliation is something that became more frequent thanks to e-commerce because the payment cycles got shortened. In traditional models, the payments used to happen once a month or once in 45 days. There was credit that was happening. But now, because of e-commerce, these payment cycles had to be shortened, hence the reconciliation had to be done on a more frequent basis. And these vendors had to deploy literally dedicated teams or dedicated tools to do the payment reconciliation as well as inventory reconciliation, which by the way had to be done at an item level. So the complexity increased manifold, and without technology that would have not been possible. So this was one of the first areas that technology impacted when the e-commerce supply chain was being set up. Some of the needs that a warehouse management needed was allowing item-based picking, being able to do cycle count at an item level, being able to do quality check at multiple phases. You do quality check at inbound, quality check at outbound, do picking at a handheld level. And handheld also has to be like an Android device now. It cannot be a bulky handheld device which used to be used earlier on. Now you can use a handheld device using a free mobile app. You just have to have a scanner which is less than 10,000 rupees, and you can do a complete paperless operations of your warehouse. And all this is being done in warehouses of Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal in today's generation. Similarly, another thing that we saw happening was usage of data and analytics. We talked about IoT in the previous session, which has been possible because of large data being captured through these technology systems. Some of the examples that we see from day-to-day life in e-commerce is you are able to track your pizza delivery or your e-commerce delivery, which we talked about even in the earlier session. The customer transactions gets captured at every level. How are you shopping? What are the products you browse? So that they are able to intelligently give you in your next feed relevant products to you, so that you can buy products more easily. Seller ratings have been introduced for the first time. So now when you buy, you are able to see whether it's a 4.7 rating seller or a 4.8 rating seller. When you hire Uber, you obviously want to go with a driver which is higher than 4.5 because you are assured a certain level of service. This has again been possible due to technology. And finally, when an e-commerce delivery boy comes to your house, you see now he's carrying a mobile app wherein you sign. He doesn't use a paper anymore. That has led to savings as well as has improved the visibility drastically across the entire supply chain. And that is why we've been able to control the returns that I mentioned about from a level of 40% to less than 20%. Finally, there have been some innovations which have happened due to compliance, thanks to the new regimes that have come in the present government. One of them being the GST, which has just reformed the tax structure in the country, because of which new accounting systems have come in. We've heard of new players like ClearTax, Zoho, which are coming in, are providing solutions which are cloud-based and are very easy to use and help make the sellers or these vendors become GST compliant on a click of a button. Similarly, invoicing is now becoming mandatory, so point of sale solutions have come up. In fact, right now there are more than 25 players in the country who are offering point of sale solutions to retailers. Similarly, the websites have to be payment compliant. So for them to be PCI compliant, they need to ensure that they use new tools like Magento, WooCommerce, etc. So we are seeing these innovations happening at different stages of the e-commerce journey. And finally, we've seen some level of cross-border commerce now picking up thanks to technology. New systems are coming up in cross-border commerce. We all know cross-border commerce is going to boom. It's expected to go up to $1 trillion by 2020. In fact, in India, more than 900 million shoppers are expected to be international shoppers by 2020. In fact, there was a study by DHL which stated that the cross-border commerce is expected to grow more than 2 times than the local commerce. All this is possible, but we have to make sure that the ecosystem around it is suitable, and that can be done through technology. Right now, there are multiple touch points for a cross-border shipment to happen. There is a first mile pickup, there has to be customs clearance, and then a last mile delivery. These are 3 different systems, as Madam talked about, that the systems don't talk to each other, resulting in a broken experience for the end customer. We have to make sure that these systems all these 3 systems are talking in the same language. Similarly, the lead times have to be reduced, and where the logistics providers or the freight forwarders can be of great help, because right now an average lead time for a shipment to a Middle East at a reasonable cost is, let's say, 6 to 7 days. How can we make it less than 2 days or a single day delivery, so at an affordable cost, so that the customer is able to get more product variety? We have to ensure that there is enough trust around cross-border commerce that they can securely make payment if a shipment is coming from India to, let's say, US, or from China to, let's say, India. All that ecosystem needs to be solved for, and there has been some work happening around it. For example, Alibaba has revolutionized the cross-border commerce in China. Alibaba has brought more than 14,000 brands in China who are doing cross-border right now. Amazon in India has launched a global selling program which has got more than 20,000 vendors shipping outside of India. And Flipkart has also recently acquired eBay for them to open more than 15 countries to Indian vendors so that they can sell cross-border. These are some of the innovations that have happened on the technology side. So to sum up, technology is at the centerpiece on both the front end and the back end, whatever innovations are happening, and hopefully we will be able to see many more revolutions coming in, with more stakeholders coming in from the logistics side, from the marketplace side, and all working together to make it a robust ecosystem. That's all I had for today. Thanks for your time.
100% visibility to the end client so that the experience, the customer experience is great. What you also mentioned about the customer rating. So, when Ms. Agarwal this morning was saying that, the customer is silent. So, obviously, he's not the silent player. We as logistics companies do know, they talk a lot. Through this, there will be, the systems are going to drive the ratings of each vendor. So each vendor today will not just be responsible, and he will not only have a ear from some of the acquaintances that the customer may have, but he will actually have a rating from a whole set of customers who possibly use that vendor over the entire journey. So which means that everybody needs to set up their processes, they need to make all the necessary improvements in their systems to make sure that the customer gets the due experience and you get repeat business from the same client and possible new clients. Thank you very much, Kapil. I will request everybody to keep the questions parked for a while. We'll get Rasmussen. He is Managing Director for Kuehne+Nagel India. He's got 14 years experience with Kuehne+Nagel and 20 years in our industry. He's very result-oriented and specializes in providing complex logistics solutions. He's been leading teams across various nationalities and multicultural. I will request him to come over and give us a little bit, since Kuehne+Nagel is one of the most leading and biggest traditional freight forwarding company, some point of view. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for him, because you were having tea before.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, friends of the industry, partners. Allow me to take a bit of a different view on this whole innovation and e-commerce concept of our industry. So, for those of you who doesn't know Kuehne+Nagel, we are a 125-year-old company. What is worse, we are a German-Swiss-based company. You can't get any more conservative than that. So a German-Swiss-based 125-year-old company. How do we convert a company like that into innovate in the future? How do we prepare ourselves going forward? Now we know e-commerce. We know stranger to Amazon. We know stranger to Alibaba. We're doing business and work with them already. We do the warehousing, the release of cargo distributions, and the air freight and the sea freight and so forth. We know all this stuff. That's not the innovation part. Visibility. Yes, we have that, all that. We know all these things. We have track and trace, we have KN locking, what we call ourselves. This is not news to us. What we need to figure out in our industry, in particular in a company like Kuehne+Nagel, with the size we are, the age we have, is, and I think it was mentioned somewhere before, what's happening in 5 years from now? How do we prepare ourselves for the future? How do we position ourselves now to what's happening in 2022? And I'd like to take you into that a little bit. Because Kuehne+Nagel has come up with a concept that we like to call KN plus Next Gen. Now the KN plus Next Gen is the future. It is the generations of what's going to happen in the future, what's coming at us towards this e-commerce business. And the KN plus Next Gen is driven by three pillars. It is the customer, technology, and people. What was the background? You don't have to read, but I'll get through it as much as I can. So, what was the background behind this KN plus Next Gen? We realized that the future of our industry is not driven by large corporations. The future of our industry is driven by the consumers. Consumers tell us what they want. They tell us when they want it and how they want it. They tell us what they want to see, when they want to see it. They tell us when they want to make an order, how they want to make the order, how do they get the cargo in. Now, how do we as an industry champion prepare ourselves for a trend like that going forward? we realized that the market trend, the innovation, the growth is not happening anymore in traditional markets. It's not happening back in Europe. It's not happening in the USA. Yes, they're still growing at a minimum rate of 0.5% maybe. The growth that we're looking at right now is happening right now in Asia. It's happening in India, it's happening in China. I just came out of 9 years in China. I've seen that growth. I'm now in India since a year, and I see a lot of similarities of what India has to what China had as well. And I'm excited to be in India right now because of this. We are working away from a traditional business-to-business model towards a business-to-consumer model. Can we, as a forwarder, be ready for this? Are we geared up to taking care of the consumers and the demands that they have? Can we cater to the requirements of just one piece of equipment or one piece of product instead of giving them a full pallet load of stuff that they want to see? Technology is, as mentioned before by many partners as well, is changing extremely fast. We got to be in the same pace of that. We need to be able to cater up with this. In the future, there won't be a laptop, there won't be a desktop. The way we see it in the future is you're going to have your computer sitting in your phone. You're going to do all your business from your little device traveling around with you all the time. You're going to get into your office in the morning, plug it in, do your emails, do your things. When you go home, you take it with you and that's it. There's nothing else. Can we cater for our business? Can we do our track and trace and everything else knowing that that's what's coming towards us? The dynamics of the industry is changing. It's changing fast. We have mentioned a little bit about the new e-commerce. We all know that the e-commerce has been growing extremely fast. That has been the market leader of our industry as well. But like I mentioned before, we know that we have this business as well. We have the experience. But my competitor, as Kuehne+Nagel, from my perspective, my competitor in the future will not be a standard freight forwarder that I know already. It's not going to be a cargo partner. It's not going to be a Schenker or DHL or Panalpina. My competitor in the future, there will be a customer that I have right now. It'll be an Amazon. We know they're already buying trucks, they're already buying things. It's going to be an Alibaba. They made a bid for Toll a few years ago to buy them. Are we prepared for this? Can we cater up for this? Are we ready for this going forward? So what we want to do is embracing the change. We don't want to underestimate the impact that this change will have. And we have to expect the unexpected. And what are we, as a Kuehne+Nagel, doing behind all those things? How do we prepare ourselves for that? That was the thought process behind the KN Plus Next Gen. So the KN Plus, we don't want to change what we know from the past. The KN Plus of the KN Plus Next Gen represents what we grew, how we got past 125 years up until now. We've done a lot of things right. We are a company of 70,000 people. We have a base in every country in the world. So the foundations of what Kuehne+Nagel grew our business on is not bad. So we don't want to go back and change everything that we know. We need to build the next one. So the KN Plus stands for that exact point. The next gen stands for the 3 points I mentioned before: the customer, the people, and the technology. And I'd like to go a little bit more into details of what that means to us. The customers, the people, and the technology. Of course, the customers, we always talk about customers. And yes, they are important, but do we really listen to the customers? Are they the silent partner that we always talk about? Or can we take that to the next and find out exactly what they want to see from us? The people are people within the Kuehne+Nagel organization, people we talk to. This is still going to be a people business. With all technology coming into the industry, it's not going to change the fact that this is still a people business. Technology goes into the point of the different way the communications, the omnichannels, how do we interact as a company, how do we interact with our clients, how do we interact with our partners, our carriers, our warehouses, our trucking companies, and so forth. So on the customer side, Yes, like I said, we have of course realized that customers is always part of our discussions, and there has to be part of discussions. But have we done enough behind this? Have we listened to this? And when we go into a presentation in the past, and what we're doing in these things previously, we go in with a 25 PowerPoint presentation, we go in and tell how good Kühne & is. We never listen. And then we leave the meeting, and we leave the presentations, and we go out and we expect the business coming into us next day. It doesn't happen that way anymore. Now we go into these presentations now with maybe 1 or 2 slides, that's it. We don't need to tell the customers how good and big and strong we are. They don't care about that. They want to know that we know their business, that we understand what their requirements are. So rather talk about the industry specifics. And in India, that comes down to what we're looking at right now, in particular, aviation, perishables, pharmaceuticals, industries, details, verticals, which is growing extremely fast. Automotive we can add to it as well, but that's not anymore a new thing. Of course, it's been there for quite a long time. It's still growing very fast, so not to ignore it. But it's no longer about going in and giving a textbook solutions that we know from Kühne. It's about understanding the different industries. Getting behind the skin of the customers. We have, of course, our customer excellence implementations. So we're now going back and looking at what we did wrong in the past about implementing clientele in our business, because we're very good at getting business on board. But we not very good at maintaining the business. So when we get after the business, we got it on board, we got it in, and we were happy, and we went after the next customer. We didn't look back and say, well, what's going to happen in the back behind us? There's no focus on ensuring that the language we're speaking is actually making sense to the clients. Technology, to us, is two-sided. We have in India, or in Kühne as a whole, we have created a new platform internally that we call MyKN. MyKN is an internal communication tool, very much like the LinkedIn, the Facebook, the everything else. But it's a way that we will show to our employees that we are following the trend. We have our own internal platform. Now eventually the idea is to bring customers on board the MyKN as well. It's already rolled out, it's working right now. We're communicating that on a global scale. It actually rolled out 3-4 months ago, so it's not very new, but it's still being adapted into. That's one thing. Number 2 is, in Singapore right now, we have an innovation center. We established a center in Singapore who is doing nothing but looking at tomorrow's trends. There's a person sitting down there just looking at what's happening. How do we get further from here? What's the trend? Is there e-commerce? Is there technology? Is there track and trace? Is there driverless trucks? How do we as a Kühne get involved in, and do we want to get involved in? Is that our business? Is that the industry that we want to get involved in? Now, like it or not, we have to be involved in everything that is to do with logistics. Air freight, sea freight, overhead, it doesn't matter what it is, we have to be part of it. But what kind of role do we have to play in this? And that's Innovation Center in Singapore is doing that together, or for us here in Asia. Quite unique. We also have established a joint venture in Singapore with Temasek Holding. Temasek is a large Singaporean government-based company where a capital has been invested in by Kühne and by Temasek Holding, where we are looking at new startups, upstarters, companies coming up within our industry in specifics. We are funding them, we are trying to help them to get off the ground, and then we are learning from their experience and learning from their ups and their downs, and something will fail, something will succeed. And that's the whole purpose of this innovation center, or this joint venture with Temasek Holding. And if we find things that succeed, we will take that on and implement that in our own operations as well. Now, of course, when it comes to air freight, in particular, we're talking a lot about the low touch and the no touch. And we have a certain percentage target that we want to achieve within our industry in the next 5 years of low touch, no touch cargo. That means that Kuehne + Nagel employees, we have no touching of this cargo at all, shipments. It is completely being run within the interface of e-commerce. That percentage is confidential, but it's not a small percentage comparing to the size of the volume that we handle within Kuehne + Nagel. Very aggressive target. Of course, we have our airlock and everything else, but there's nothing different from any other forwarder, so that's part of the industry. Speed up, yeah, sorry. And then, makes almost sense. So last but not least, we have our people as the third pillar in the KN plus Next Gen. And the people we know today are people that was brought in to the industry with a certain requirements. The people we need to have in our company tomorrow are similar people, but with a different requirements. It is, as automation kicks in warehouses, in all end requirements, these specific requirements to staff we have currently today is no longer there tomorrow. So we are focusing a lot on our customer care, on our customer experience, and our customer face on the outside. And not so much anymore on the labor-intensive works, because we know that by time these will be faded out and will not be required. So that of course requires a lot of training, a lot of education, a lot of investments. It's going to be more expensive, but the automations that you get from automating your warehouses and your overland trucking and your air freights and so forth, cargo handling, will drive a higher productivity, which will then drive a higher yield, which will drive a higher GP. And then you can afford to hire more expensive people. So that's the logic behind the whole process of getting more skilled labor support through the automation. So, on that note, I hope it didn't take too much of your time with the call. So, thank you very much.
I contemplated that day, I said, we are happy our man is sitting there. So that will take care of cargo.
Now it's time. Mr. Vipin Jain.
So now all of you can trouble in what we need as a cargo community.
We troubled it before also.
Mr. Venkat Reddy from Menzies Aviation.
I like Arun because in front of him I look thinner. Anybody has seen last picture of Venkat? He's standing for an election in Karnataka. Who's the most complicated thing as far as and he's just survived because he's got a beautiful wife. And we all love her. Yeah.
Mr. S.L. Sharma.
This is our Vishwa Pitama. He's been always guided us.
All across the country just to be for this seminar. Thank you very much for being here. On behalf of the Air Cargo Forum and the entire fraternity of logistics industry, we convey a hearty thanks to Sri Jain Sinha, Honorable Minister, to match the best in the world. Show me the money. This industry and ACFI's Interactive Summit on Innovation and Disruption in Air Cargo. I also thank Mrs. Vandana Agarwal, Economic Investments, who have again come from a long way. We also wish to thank all the central government officers for the unlimited support and extending their time for ACFI activities. I would hear DP World, Ankit Taparia, Terramax Technologies, Amar More, Carly Logistics, our grand man Yashwal Sharma, also very thank you, Pierre Ramison, Kuehne + Nagel, and Vikram Paul, our very favorite gentleman here.
Thanks to everyone. Thanks to Ashoka Hotel for their support. Of course, we cannot finally I would like to make the Jual, Vijay, Varsha, all our special hearty thanks to the ACFI and the Secretariat Subcommittee for their support, dedication, teamwork and untiring efforts. We all work smilingly, shoulder to shoulder to make a video, and basically that's it. Fine, thanks. My members for a photograph, or group photograph. Media too for being here with us.
We can also